welcome back to English from A to Z.
Today we're looking at an instructional guide that tackles a huge hurdle for English learners: how to stop translating in your head.
It's a great piece. It gives 7 clear steps for speaking more naturally, and it correctly nails the problem that translating is slow, stressful, and just feels unnatural. Let's jump right in.
Absolutely. The diagnosis is spot on. That mental translation is a bottleneck.
It is. But we're here to see how we can make this already strong guide even more transformative. And after looking at the 7 steps, I think while the what is excellent, we can really strengthen the why and clarify the when.
That's exactly right. Let's start with that fundamental challenge, which is really about building a completely new thinking engine in your brain.
Yeah, the guide gives powerful tools, but we need to really deepen the cognitive justification for using them.
So your first point is about that justification.
It is. My first big piece of feedback is about deepening the cognitive shift. You know, that essential rewiring of the brain that breaks the dependence on your native language.
Okay, so getting into the neuroscience of it a little bit.
Kind of, yeah. The material's main goal is to create a direct path from a concept like, say, hunger, straight to the English word, completely skipping the L1 translation.
Right. And it does this well in sections like understand the main idea, and especially section 6, avoid using bilingual dictionaries.
Exactly. But here's the weakness I see. The material defines what to do, use an English dictionary, focus on context, but it could be so much more powerful in explaining why these actions are like fundamental to physically rewiring your brain.
I see what you mean. The path of least resistance is always going to be translation because it's fast and comfortable.
It's a deep-seated habit, so learners need a really compelling, almost high-stakes reason to put in the effort to change it.
If they don't get that they're literally building a faster neural network, the motivation it evaporates the moment things get tough.
Precisely. The justification needs to be about the massive payoff, not just, avoid this bad habit.
So how do we strengthen that? How do we frame it so the learner feels like they're building a superpower, not just doing homework?
We need to frame these little steps, like looking up a word in an English-only dictionary, as essential tools for building a dedicated, direct English thought channel.
The focus has to be on that direct concept to English link.
Yes. So the guide uses the word excited and suggests looking it up. Feeling happy and enthusiastic about something. Great advice. But let's push the implication.
Okay, so what happens inside the learner's head when they do that?
That's the key. We should add an explicit note right there saying that this process creates a mental definition that is totally separate from their native language word for excited.
So the goal isn't just to define the word, it's to train the brain to link the concept of happy anticipation directly to the sound and shape of the word excited.
And the native language word it becomes irrelevant. It fades away. You're cutting out that slow middleman.
And you could apply that same logic to the phrases too. The guide has "let me catch up with you later" and suggests the learner thinks he will talk to me later.
Which is good. It avoids direct translation, but we can make it even stickier.
How so?
We can add a little mental check strategy. We advise the learner to immediately visualize the context. Picture 2 people waving goodbye or a calendar notification popping up.
I see. So you're forcing the brain to cement the English phrase to an image or a concept, not to a translated sentence.
Exactly. That's what builds the speed for real-time conversation. And to make it all stick, you add a metaphor.
Like what?
A visual one. Frame the native language dictionary route as this long, winding road with traffic lights. And the new English-only concept link? That's a brand new high-speed bridge, a shortcut.
That helps the learner really get the efficiency gain. It makes the initial hard work feel worth it. That's a great way to frame the psychology of it.
Okay, so let's move on to the structure. The flow of the 7 steps is logical, but I felt like it could be a bit overwhelming for someone just starting out.
I see that. My second key point is about optimizing the structural progression, the pacing and flow of it all, to make sure the learner doesn't just give up.
Right. As it's set up now, some of the easier, high-leverage tasks are later in the sequence. And, critically, the mindset shift is almost at the very end.
Yeah, Section 8, Speak Without Fear, and those affirmations in Section 9 feel like an afterthought, but they're probably the most important part.
But is there a risk there? I mean, if we put all the mindset stuff up front, do we lose the pragmatic learner who just wants technical steps?
That's a fair point, but think about what drives their translation habit. It's anxiety.
Fear of making a mistake?
Exactly. If you don't tackle the fear first, no amount of phrase learning is going to stop them from falling back on their native language when the pressure's on.
Okay, that makes sense. So the suggestion is to regroup the steps?
Yes, into 2 or 3 distinct tiers. Something like Tier 1, Mindset and Internal Monologue. Tier 2, Input Acquisition. And then Tier 3, Active Output Training.
That makes it a roadmap. It reduces the cognitive load right at the start. So how would we rearrange the current steps into that structure?
First, we take the affirmation from Section 9, I don't need to translate, and the advice from Section 8, Speak Without Fear, and we make that the absolute preamble. Tier 1, the foundation.
The non-negotiable starting point.
It's the psychological shield. It gives them permission to fail and reminds them that the goal is just communication, not perfection.
Okay, so you establish the mental groundwork first. What comes next?
Tier 2, the simple, low-stakes internal habits. We should pair the easiest activities together right after the mindset part.
So you mean Section 3, describe your day, and Section 4, think in easy English?
Exactly. Move those right up. They're simple, daily habits that start building that English thought channel without any external pressure. It's practice for the direct concept to English path we were just talking about.
So the learner gains confidence in the thought process itself before they even have to speak to another person.
Right. And that leaves the really intensive active stuff for the final tier, Tier 3.
Active output training.
Yeah, so we clearly define shadowing practice from Section 7 and phrase acquisition from Section 2 as the highest level exercises. Things you only start once those internal Tier 1 and 2 habits are pretty much automatic.
That sequencing is so much smarter. It prevents you from throwing a beginner into high-speed mimicry before they've even mastered thinking in simple sentences on their own.
It manages their energy and gives them early wins that are psychological and internal.
Okay, that structure is really solid. So now let's talk about the input. The current strategies are good, but the real world is messy. It throws much more complex language at us.
Which brings us to our third area of focus. And this is crucial for real fluency. Expanding input variety and context.
Right. The guide provides great internal practice tools, describing your day, learning phrases. But if a learner only ever stays in their comfort zone of, self-generated vocabulary,
they're not ready for the real world. They're not ready for that unpredictable language that triggers the translation panic.
that comfort zone is a trap. The weakness here is that the current advice risks making the learner really good at their own vocabulary, but totally vulnerable when they hear a new accent or specialized words.
Yeah, the translation habit really breaks when you're forced to rely only on context and tone because the individual words are failing you.
So we need a step dedicated to what you might call forced contextual comprehension.
I like that. It's about intentional complexity. You have to push learners outside their linguistic boundaries because that's where the brain is forced to adapt.
So my suggestion is to add a step that's all about diversifying their input, something that intentionally challenges their existing vocabulary.
So they're forced to use that principle from Section 5, understand the main idea, not every word, but in a really high challenge, low support environment.
But wait, if you throw a learner into that complexity without any support, don't you risk them just getting overwhelmed and retreating even faster?
That's the balancing act. The guide has to frame it as deliberate practice, not just passive listening. We can expand the definition of shadowing practice, which is now in Tier 3.
Okay.
Instead of just any podcast, we suggest they specifically consume input that's high in technical complexity. Think business news, political commentary, stuff with rapid, unfamiliar accents.
I see. So you raise the stakes on the input to force their brain to decode for the big picture under pressure.
Exactly. And a really concrete example would be to suggest an exercise called the Contextual Immersion Challenge.
What's that?
It's the deliberate practice of consuming English media with zero textual support. No subtitles, no transcript, dictionary stays in the drawer.
Wow. Okay. That forces the brain to trust context and makes translation literally impossible because of the speed.
That's the whole point. And we can apply this to the building blocks too, the phrases from Section 2.
How would that work?
Well, learning a phrase is great, but context is everything. We should suggest that when a learner finds a new phrase, they have to actively hunt for it in 3 completely different real-world contexts.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so find the same phrase in, say, a formal business meeting, then in a stand-up comedy special, and then in a text message.
That ensures the meaning is tied to the concept and the social situation, not just a single rigid L1 translation. It inoculates them against that panic when the context suddenly shifts.
That's exactly the kind of deep, robust advice that makes a guide like this invaluable.
Okay, so let's recap the core actionable feedback here.
First, deepen that cognitive justification. Give the learner the compelling why, explain they're building a high-speed shortcut in their brain.
Right. Second, restructure the 7 steps into those clear, manageable tiers. Start with mindset, then internal practice, and only then move to active output. It's a much more sustainable progression.
And finally, expand that input variety. Actively challenge the learner with complex, low-support material to force true contextual comprehension and get them out of their vocabulary comfort zone.
This is already such a clear and practical guide, especially with its focus on those simple daily habits like describing your day.
For sure. And by applying these changes, especially the new structure and that cognitive framing, this guide can become an even more powerful tool for finally breaking that translation habit.
Keep practicing, keep growing, and keep thinking in English. We definitely encourage you to apply these suggestions and send the revised material back to us for another critique.
Until next time.